Hi. So yeah, the cryptic title was kind of actually jumped on me by our PR guy. So it was.
You do know what the talk's about.
I do know what the talk's about. Don't worry. I have so many talks in my head. So
right. I'll let Joe take over. Let's give him a welcome though to kick things off.
Yeah. So my name is Joe Brammer. I'm the CEO of Bulkhead Interactive. Still kind of figuring out what a CEO does. But apparently it's talks. So I just really, this isn't going to be a long talk or anything. I just wanted to show you exactly what not to do when you're trying to do community engagement, because we thought this was all a good idea. And some of this may be obvious to you, but it wasn't to us. So we're Bulkhead Interactive. We started with 6 people in a little closet in Derby, and we then moved to a slightly bigger closet in Derby, and now we're in a really big, terrible office in Derby. There's a theme here. It's all in Derby. So we've grown from six people after university to about 33, I think it is, and we have worked hard together. And we've been UE4 the whole time, and we are really big FPS fans, specifically from games like Call of Duty 2, Enemy Territory, and that kind of thing. We were really into those games, and that was what we were playing at lunch when we were making a game called the Turing Test. At lunch we were playing World War II shooting games, and I think eventually we just said, "Fuck it, let's make a World War II shooter and see what happens." The only way we could do it was to put it on Kickstarter, because no one gives a bunch of 23-year-olds some money to make a shooter because they say they can do it. And to be totally honest, we didn't even think we could do it. So Battalion 1944 is our World War II shooter. And we put it on Kickstarter for £100,000, and to be totally honest, if it had got £100,000 and that was all it got, we would have cancelled the Kickstarter even though it had been successful, because that's just not enough money. Turns out it takes bare minimum 3 times that, but we were able to source that money from elsewhere. So Battalion is a World War II shooter, and the reason Battalion worked was because we thought we were actually really, really good at community engagement, and to some extent we are. I'm 26 now. At the time of this Kickstarter, I was 23, 24. And we were basically saying, back our Kickstarter, we used to play these games, Enemy Territory, Call of Duty 2. We're just like you. We grew up playing these games. We love them. They're amazing. And that was true. They were great games, and we did grow up playing them. And we used phrases in the Kickstarter like handcrafted by the kids who grew up playing the game. And people really liked that, and I felt they were true. The problem was everybody kind of remembers those games totally differently, and right from the start it was never gonna end super positively for us. Someone was always going to be mad at us for not doing it the way they remember it, and that really started to hurt us. But anyway, we our main approach was we look like them. We look like the people who are our fans because they're our age. And they like the same things we do, and we're in our own demographic, which is great because we thought we really understood our demographic, and we did to an extent. We understood what they wanted to do and what they liked. So, we did a lot of YouTube from the studio. A big thing that we were doing was being open. My party trick is to leak what the next Call of Duty is, and we used to do loads of fun things and just be super open with everybody and tell them what we're working on, what we're doing, how the game's going, and we thought that was the way to do things and sort of the future of the industry. And to some extent, if you look at how DICE work now with Battlefield 5, they very much saw what we were doing with Battalion and communicating with the community in terms of being very open and using Twitter to humanize our developers more. And they do something similar now. The problem is, if you don't quite deliver on that of how great it's going to be, there's no level of community management to really fix that. So we did these videos, and we did all this community stuff where we were saying, hey, we're just like you, we're players, we want your feedback, and we kept asking for feedback, and feedback is great. It's absolutely important. Most people here, I'm guessing, are developers, and they know they need feedback to make your game. The problem was when you ask for it so much, they won't stop and just fucking play the game. So what we had was sort of endless streams of feedback, and regardless of what update we put out, we're like, hey, is this fun now? They're like, yeah, it's really fun, but you could change this. And it was never good enough because we were setting people up for this penultimate, it's going to be good next time, or it's going to be better, or the game's getting better. And our marketing on Twitter was basically always that it was good. I'm excited for. I would tweet, I'm really excited for our next update. We're all looking forward to it. And again, it's building up to this thing where we let people decide what the ending is going to be. Our biggest mistake will be the fact that we didn't say what it was, commit to that, and okay, maybe we lose a few sales because someone thinks it's a realistic shooter when it's not. But we don't get the bad review, because that bad review is not, that guy that bought the game left a bad review. I don't really need I think it was like £7 we get from every copy. We don't really need that £7. That bad review hurts us more. So really that kind of we're one of you strategy doesn't work out in the long run, because ultimately they don't care that they're one of you. They kind of want you to be better. They want you to know more than them and be an expert. But if you ever show the fact that players know a lot about their games, then and you might want to know what they think, then they may start to question how much you actually know. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Another big mistake we made was nostalgia. And nostalgia is great for getting people excited about something, getting people into a game and saying this is really fun. But ultimately it always comes back to everyone experienced it differently, and everyone has a different idea of what that game was. And to us, when we started Battalion on Kickstarter, we wanted to make a capture the flag Call of Duty 2 game, and we wanted to then merge it with Call of Duty 4, and where you had sprint instead of no sprint. And when we did all that, it just kind of messed with people's views on what their game was when they were a kid. And most of these people that were coming back didn't even play these games, hadn't played these games for 10 years. And those were the worst people, because they weren't the worst people, because they came back and it was similar to their idea, but it wasn't perfect. And they'd play it for a month and then that was gone. And that's fairly normal now in PC games in the life cycle. So that was okay. But the really hardcore players who are still playing these games that we try to convert, they will never switch over because it is impossible to please them. The only way Call of Duty 2 players will be happy with you is if you took Call of Duty 2 and if Activision took it and just released it again. I'm not talking about the remastered thing they did. I'm talking exactly as it is. They don't really want change. They just want that time back. And that's something obviously we can just never give them. So managing that nostalgia, we just let it run away. We were just enjoying our first moment in the sun, our first experience of being popular, our first experience of IGN wanting to talk to you and not having to beg, and that was nice. But then, as release started approaching, as people started saying, okay, when's this game coming out? We realized people had massively sort of misinterpreted what we thought the game was. And our Kickstarter had been too open because we were trying to make up the dev funds we needed, which eventually, we could make the game, but it might do more harm than good in the end. So we can moving on. Accountability is really important to players, but a mistake we kept making was we were happy, very much me, my job at the time was to sort of keep everybody sane, and because we were working 16-hour days at one point. This was a very startup experience. There was very quickly ramping up the amount of people we had, but no one was working for much money. And I would go in front of IGN or whatever, Eurogamer, and say, I'm sorry this happened, I'm very sorry. And I'd say it won't happen again. And the funny story is when we launched, we had massive matchmaking issues that some of you may know about. And a few months after, we had another big update, and the matchmaking broke again. But this time I couldn't just take the bullet anymore and say, oh, I'm sorry. It was actually Google, and I tweeted that a lot. And people then, I told people, oh, Google have done this is exactly what happened. Instead of saying, thank you for being transparent, like I stupidly thought they might, they were actually really frustrated that I was just shifting the blame. So ultimately, people just want you to be accountable for your problems. But again, you can't ever say it happens again. They don't really want excuses. They just want the apology. Because then you get people calling for your resignation from your own company, which is weird circumstance to be in. Okay, so another thing, big part of our project was we need to showed people that developers are human too, and we thought we could try and change the world probably a little bit more hippie than we planned to be, and we thought we'd show the developers are people, and that way we'd do our bit, as a little small bit, to change the industry and sort of say, you guys need to respect us a bit. That didn't really go down as we planned. They just kind of thought we were whining. If someone said, you developers need to get cancer, that's a common one, you'd say, hey, you shouldn't say that. That's not very good. They'd say, shut up. So there's just no point. And then they say, this developer's whining and complaining. So I couldn't really win with that one. And I've kind of learned to deal with that. So what I found, because we said, okay, well, we're going to put my face to the game. People like accountability. So if things go wrong, it'll be me. When it's going well, it will be me too. Which was great for the 2 years when the game wasn't released. It was great because everyone was like, this thing's going to be awesome. That Joe Brammer is going to save the day. Going to take down Call of Duty. I'm still here and Call of Duty is still there, so nothing has changed that much. But what I would say is the learning experience of trying to be personal in public with players has a massive cost to not being able to do anything else. When people are asking you questions and you're committed to providing a good customer service, they don't really, if you're replying to someone, usually the Americans, when it's midnight for me and I'm replying to them, they kind of see it as like, oh, we're getting a reply in the evening. They don't realize it's the middle of your night and you're staying up doing that stuff. So, and again, this is all fairly obvious stuff, but it's really, if ever you guys try to make a big multiplayer game, there are certain things that you should commit to and not commit to. And I think what we found was drawing hard deadlines and when we respond is way more important than responding to people, because after 9 p.m., there was a clear track of my responses would be short, sometimes just rude, and sometimes just hate-filled, and would just rant at someone, depending on what they actually say. And that's where we got into like personality management, just trying to leak out the good bits and play that Facebook kind of game of like, my life's perfect, like with our own game. So really, there's nothing particularly new here, but it's something I thought I wanted to cover really, is that if you're going to take on Call of Duty, we thought it was a really good idea to be more open, be public, and to an extent, I don't really regret anything we did in Battalion, in the sense that we learned how our future games are going to be great. I know that now, and again, here we go building it up, but I know how we can avoid the situations we're in, how we can avoid the problems, and how we can get through a lot of them. And a lot of it comes down to that nostalgia and that setting your expectations. There's nothing necessarily wrong with saying this game is going to be this, even if you're going to get slightly less sales or you might disappoint a few people. The most important thing currently is Steam is painfully reliant on reviews. So, and if those negative reviews start rolling in, you hit that mixed, it is incredibly hard to come back. Players may say they don't care about reviews, they just want quality, just want a good game. They do. They don't look at mixed. Steam algorithms don't really show mixed games. So the most important thing, because you can always go and get more players, you can. You can just put money behind a big marketing campaign and drive eyeballs to your game. You can do that. But to fix mixed reviews is really difficult. So yeah, accountability is a really short-term fix. If you start saying I'm sorry and going on and doing these videos, and I think this is like midnight on release day, and I'm like basically dying, and people they'll say thank you at the time. They'll say, oh, this dev's so accountable. This is nice. I like that he says it's his fault. But after like the third time, they're like, he should resign. So accountability is fine, but you should probably have a good idea if your game's gonna have problems or not. Player sympathy is super hollow. For a while, I kind of bit into it. They were just like, keep going. And it's nice when a player says, like, it's well done, guys. I really like the game you're making. Just ignore the idiots. But a lot of the time, those guys can turn into those idiots, and you start seeing the same names that were saying, keep going, are now saying, get cancer. So it will swap. And don't buy into it. I just stopped reading comments altogether, which everyone always says, but can you actually do it as a developer? And, it comes down to the most important thing, which is why players are this way, is that they only care about results. That's all that really matters. And sometimes we wasted too much time trying to please them or trying to paint over a bad situation, whereas, we maybe should have just left it and then fixed it a few months later and just dealt with people yelling at us, because ultimately it might ruin your the image of you being a trustworthy developer, which was the original thing we set out to do. So this is not a happy ending right now. We're about to go into full release in a month or so, and we're taking all this learning with us. And I think it's something we've been practicing over this last year on how to communicate with our fans. But when it comes down to esport, nostalgic FPS games, you're in the deep end with community. So does anyone have any questions on that?
As you're right next to me.
Hey.
Thomas.
Somebody else working.
There you go for it. I'm being lazy.
First of all, I want to say I think it's really brave to be as honest about stuff. When you work in games, we always get the people up doing the, I made $1 billion, my game's amazing.
That's not me.
And actually, well, making creative stuff's tough, and more times than not, it doesn't work out as you plan. So I think it's really brave to kind of. I'm just interested in what you said about that, the hard, limits on when you do that. Would you communicate to that players? Would you put like a sticky post up or something and say, look, we respond to feedback between these times, or did they just come to learn how you did it?
I would actually say that it kind of started with a bit of a snap. PR guy over here about to love this. Where just one day, I think Reddit was just so ridiculously blaming me personally because of being the face. I was like, that's fine. I never thought it'd get that bad. So when I just deleted Reddit, I also tweeted saying I'm not responding on Reddit anymore. It's just too ridiculous. And I said I'm not responding on Steam discussions. You've had your chance. But they, that sort of combative approach was met with, at the time, like a lot of hate. There was, journalists writing about it. But what I found was over the months, I sort of didn't respond to anything really for a month and a half. Didn't really do anything. Deleted Twitter for a week, and then I couldn't survive the whole month. But then when I did come back, they were so grateful that they were getting communication again. That their approach was, as a collective community was way more controlled, and it resulted in now when we're coming to release, I don't respond nearly as much. They don't have that one-to-one customer service that we were giving them before, but now they get measured customer service. They do get some help, and it comes back to the fact that we didn't have the money to buy a community manager in the United States, a community manager in Europe to work both shifts, and really we wanted to help the industry. One of the biggest problems I find right now is, if you go to a restaurant, everyone has a good idea of how food is made and when that's really overcooked or really undercooked, but players have no idea how a game is made really. And our approach of being public was there, and in answer to your question, it just took being really hard-lined with I'm not doing this anymore, and then coming back slowly. But we did do it at the lowest point in our player numbers, so yeah.
It's a bit cheeky because we've technically got about 20 seconds, but did another hand go up? Yeah, I thought so. Brilliant. There you go.
Hi.
You don't have to fit it in 20 seconds. You're allowed more than that.
Thank you. Hi there. So having gone through all this stress and all this controversy, would you say that's altered your perception on any other concurrent controversies that emerge within the gaming industry? Say, for example, Bethesda and the canvas bag situation and their PR, nightmare. Has that made, having gone through all that and learning all these valuable lessons, has that changed your perception for other companies and made you more, say, sympathetic or even neutral? How has your experience changed you for that?
Generally, on the developer side, I would look at the DICE and the women in the game example as one where I was like, they just told their players they were being stupid, where some of their players weren't really upset with. But it was a weird one to be in a situation. So I don't think it's necessarily changed how I look at things. I still very much look at it from as someone who reads Games Press every single day. It's still a very much case-by-case basis, but I think the chip on my shoulder would say that, hang on a minute, you've got community managers and money, and we had none of that, and it was basically just me and a partner dealing with community management, and we've never even worked in a big game. We still say real game studio, and almost did. We never even worked in a real game studio other than our own, and the fact that these guys that we consider like Bethesda, like, oh my god, that's Bethesda, you're like the best people in the world, but even the fact that they make mistakes as well, it's nice to some extent, but it's also like, hang on a minute, even if we do pay someone, it could go all wrong. So Yeah, do I look at it differently? Not necessarily, but I think the way forward for all developers is, especially the bigger ones, to start showing people how games are made, and not giving them a say in design. That's not the way forward. I think it's giving them an idea of how hard it is, and saying DICE do something, I think, where they're saying, like, we're not going to crunch, and fixing players' expectations, not just from nostalgia but also from what Battlefield is going to be. I think that'll help everything in game development, really.